How's it going, guys? I'm back in Fallout 4, and this time I'm going to be building a small little shack. You'll already notice that I've put down a shack foundation and one wall. I don't know what happened, but like that part of the clip was just gone. I don't know. But yeah, I just added a couple walls on top of a shack foundation, and you'll see that there is a small gap on that right side. I put a little wall board in, a little half wall on this right side. There's a small gap in the actual buildings right there, and I do something pretty cool with it in the end. So you guys will see that whenever I get there. But as of now, this is just a tiered like shack. So we've got that higher end of this, and then like one step down there is this side, and this is actually going to be like a weapon dealer shack, and then the upper section on the left is going to be just kind of a house, essentially. That's all that is. It's just the house for the person that owns the shop. But yeah, that's not even the craziest part of this build. It gets a lot more complicated when I move up to the second floor and stuff. But yeah, so for the first section, like I said, I added the shack foundation over there, added a couple walls, made a little doorway, added stairs down, put another shack foundation, add a wall on its backside, and I used another half wall to close off that back left gap, so exactly like the other side, but I just fill in that gap with a half wall, so it looks like more of a box down here. And I really like the way that this side of the settlement's coming along too. I've really enjoyed this settlement. I think it's turning out really good overall. There's really cool things here that I've done, I think, and I think that this is going to look really good when it's finished. But I added a little roof. I added one of the ones with the like cloth hanging across it on top. And then on this front side, this is where the window is going to be, because like I said, this is a weapons dealer. So there is a small window, and I end up adding a chain link fence in that gap as well to make it a little bit more secure. And yeah, so I downloaded all my mods again recently, and when I downloaded my mods, it didn't have like my library, my mods that I have in my Bethesda library already on there, so I had to look up a lot of mods. I went on Bethesda.net on my phone because I can see the mods that I have actually added to my Bethesda library. And the reason I had to do that is because I recently had to delete Fallout 4 off of my PlayStation because I just had lost the ability to save, and it had corrupted one of my main save files for this save. And so I actually almost completely lost this save, like, altogether. It was almost a disaster. Like, that would have been the worst thing I think that could happen, because I would have lost all of this build, all of my previous builds. I did have to delete a lot of stuff off of my PlayStation, just in general. I deleted a lot of extra, like, Fallout 4 saves, just because I didn't want to, like, risk running out of space, because that's what the issue that had occurred. So if you guys watched my last video, I talked about that. I kept getting an error on Fallout 4 where it told me that I had that I needed to delete something off of my PlayStation to be able to save my Fallout 4 game. And so I would delete something, I saved it, and then when I tried to load back in another time, it had told me that the save pretty much had been corrupted. And yeah, so essentially I had lost my main save for this settlement, and I had to load an autosave, and I had lost quite a few builds. I had to rebuild a lot of stuff. you guys won't notice because I've already rebuilt it before I got to this build. You may notice things that are different. It's not really like major things, small things. You might notice some things are slightly different. But for the most part, everything is almost exactly the same, especially since I've already got like videos of how exactly everything is supposed to look. But I think that's kind of goes to show that what I build is possible to follow if you just follow it like step by step. Because I mean, nothing is really difficult about placing down a staircase or floorboards and stuff like that. Some things I understand can get a little bit more complicated, but they're nothing too crazy. But yeah, so now we're moving up to the second floor of what I was saying was going to be a bit more complicated. And I just ended up putting these 10-degree angled floors from Custom Vanilla Assets, which is still available on Bethesda.net. You can get that as a mod. I was worried because I couldn't find it at first, but if you go to my mod load order video, which I might make a new one with updated, because I got rid of a lot of mods that I don't use, and the load order that I have my mods in now works perfect. Like, I don't have any issues. Nothing like it used to be. Whenever I would download a mod or I would update a mod, my game would crash and then reload into the main menu. Same with like Creation Club. If I backed out of Creation Club and I had downloaded something, because they give away stuff for free all the time on Creation Club, it would like crash my game completely. So the mod load order that I have now works perfect. So I might do a new video of that just to show you guys what my mod load order is, what mods I have downloaded, and that it does work. Because my previous mod load order, I had a lot of mods, and now I've kind of dwindled it down to quite a few less. It's not quite nearly, it's not nearly as many as it was before, but there are still a few, and they're all pretty useful mods. But I had to delete Fallout 4 off of my PlayStation, and when I did that, it deleted all of my mods, all of the DLCs, all of my Creation Club stuff, and then, but thankfully, I don't think that it'll work for everybody. Thankfully, though, for me, it's begun letting me save again. So if I run into that issue again, I know that I just need to delete my Fallout 4 off of my PlayStation, and then I should be good. But it was a pretty stressful like couple of days trying to deal with it. But yeah, so what I'm doing though right here, because this is the part that I said was a little bit more complicated, and this is like half of the build for a very small area, but in that small gap I had added, before the clip that I don't know what happened, it must have just been not recording when I thought I was or something, but I had added a shack bridge down there and then a couple of different plywood pieces to make a floor down at the very bottom. And so then right here, all I'm doing now is making a set of stairs up out of that area. So this is essentially just going to be a small set of beds for somebody. It's essentially going to be a house for someone on top of and behind the weapon dealer's house. So I end up putting stairs kind of wrapping around at first, and then I end up changing that and I turn it to where it's facing the same direction that the other staircase is facing. So it comes straight down into this area. And eventually I move that set of wood that I placed right there, those wooden planks, so there's a little bit more room underneath those stairs. But this was the more complicated part. This is the part that kind of took the longest, was placing down a lot of planks individually. So I end up having to place down a lot of planks by themselves. And this was another reason why this was so complicated, was I couldn't use place anywhere on top of this build. And I think I mentioned in the last video, I actually had to redo this build 3 times. So this is probably the most efficient video of me doing this build. And the build did change a little bit through the builds, because originally I don't know how I even did it, to be honest with you, but it was just one staircase down so it was like one staircase straight off of this building that we're on, and then one off of the wood that I had placed across, and then it was just like a big open room down there. And I don't know how I even did it, to be 100% honest, because I couldn't recreate it the second time. But on the second build I did a version of this essentially, and then this is the third version of this that I had built, and I think that it turned out better after I recreated this, because I think that it added a little bit, it added 2 more beds, which means I can get rid of some of the bunk beds on the other side of the settlement, which I probably will do, because I don't really need 30 beds in this settlement. I'm not going to have 30 settlers. If there was a settlement to have 30 settlers, I mean, this one could probably work. It'd be really compact and stuff, but I don't really want 30 settlers in this settlement, so because it's just this area anyway is already so dense that I don't want to have a bunch of settlers and then have issues with frame rate or anything like that, which surprisingly, knock on wood, I haven't had any issues with frame rate yet. So it's actually been pretty surprising, the fact that I've not had any major issues with frame rate. Sometimes I have issues loading into the build menus and stuff like that. It'll take a couple seconds, but I think that it's just been that way since mods have been released. But you can see that right here I'm adding another walkway across the top, and then I added a piece of plywood all across the top because there's a small little gap in the wood. I just wanted it to look kind of thrown together and scrappy, so I left a little bit of a gap. But here's the finished tour. You can see decorations on the outside are pretty minimal, but once you actually get inside of the build, that's whenever it starts to become the most interesting, especially the downstairs house area. So overall, I think that this is just a really scrappy build, and I think that it looks really cool. I like the awning that I added on the front. That comes with the Junk Wall Collections mod. I didn't download it till recently just because I was I don't really need all of the different defense posts or whatever that you can get from there, because I'll build my own. But it does add awnings, which are really cool. It adds a couple of junk walls that have windows, which are really cool too. But this isn't a super complicated structure. It's just kind of a tiered structure, and then it's got this shack bridge on the front. I flattened it out with a piece of plywood, and then on the inside, you got a shelf with a bunch of different guns, a locker with a bunch of different ammo, a couple of containers for ammunition and explosives. They got a safe and a register over here, and you can see that there is a small gap in the fence, so they'd be able to pass stuff through there. But this is the interesting part of this house. So I added a little kitchen area, so I know that frying pan is floating. I didn't know whenever I placed it, because I placed it from this angle so it doesn't look like it is. And then I walked in the room and I was like, that's floating, let me run to that real quick and try to make sure that you can see where I was looking at it from. But I added a little counter between the bed area and the kitchen area, I guess, of the shack. And then the really cool part is the upstairs on this building. So I wanted the path to kind of be across the roof. Also, there's a huge gap in these tarped roofs, so covering up that half I felt was kind of necessary anyway. I thought it made it look a little bit more interesting. But you can see there's a small little path. I added a bunch of posters on the walls and stuff in here, just like people had been like placing posters here forever or something like that, and they've been like adding a bunch. Because when I originally built it, I added a couple, and then I think that that looks like they've just been like slapping posters on the walls for a really long time. And these people back here have just got boxes of food and a bunch of posters and stuff like that that they keep around. Don't really have a whole lot like of possessions anyway, so all they've really got is the sleeping bags they own, and then different food items and drinks and stuff like that. So like this guy, he's got a calendar and then like a silver shroud poster and a sleeping bag, and then got a container or a bucket, or not a bucket, but a like a container full of beer and stuff like that. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of this build. Let me know to see if there's anything that you guys would like to see me build here. I'm probably going to do some more housing up on the roofs, and then probably a couple shops or something. But we'll probably be wrapping up this settlement here soon. But let me know what you guys would like to see from me. Let me know if there's anything other, like maybe the mod and load order updated video like I was saying. But thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.